Hi everyone, this is Ruby from the Useful Journal. I am slowly catching up with all my reviews, and today I have for you the Mindful Giraffe journal. The Mindful Giraffe journal is made by Laura, and she's a very small team of herself and her husband. I have actually been following Laura on Instagram for a year, and it's so nice to have a personal connection with the journal you're using, and I think that's one of the reasons that Archer and Olive has done so well, is because they've created a whole community around their journal. I think it's a really nice touch. The journal is made in the UK. The company has a Mindful Giraffe website, but they also have a Facebook page, Twitter, they've got an Instagram account for Mindful Giraffe, and they've also got Laura's Instagram account, which is Bujo for Laura. There is a large range of journal covers. This one is from the signature range. They also have special editions, so at the moment they've got some printed covers with some really nice artwork on them. This is an A5, they also come in B5. So as you might have noticed, the journal just had a simple paper wrapping around it, stuck with a Mindful Giraffe sticker. Very simple. The packaging all over was very simple. There was no plastic shrink wrap, and I actually really admire that because I hate packaging. It's a card cover, a PVC card cover, so it's just like getting a hardcover book. What I like about these covers is that they're actually wipeable, so if you get a small mark on them you can usually wipe it off. The journal is very neat. It's got very sharp square corners, and a lot of journals go with the rounded, but I think the square corner is quite smart. It has a gold stamped image of a giraffe on the cover and also some dots, and then on the spine there's another gold stamped giraffe, and then on the back cover there is the company name stamped in gold as well. You can get your journal personalised for an extra charge. There is no bells and whistles on this journal, so there is no elastic to keep it closed. I'm not sure whether I like that or not. I tend not to keep the elastic on it while I'm using the journal because sometimes it presses the cover. So this is my Vivid Scribbles journal, but you can see how the elastic might be useful after a while because they do get a bit bulky, but it does mean that it's much cleaner looking, so I'm not upset about the lack of an elastic, and I can always put my own around if I really want to. So no elastic, it has no pen loop, it has no rear pocket, so for all those people that like stashing a few stickers and things like that, no, not in this one. You can occasionally, you could stick your own in, I suppose, and some companies do offer an additional pocket as a separate purchase. There are two ribbons. They are always in this gold colour. They are very short. There is no way I can pull these around the corner to open my journal, so I have to use them from here to open the journal. I prefer being able to pull it around the side because then you've got an equal pressure on the journal when you're opening it, but they would need another inch to, well, maybe not quite that much to be usable. They're very, very short. You can, they still work to a degree. It's just personal preference. I like longer ribbons. Now when we go inside the journal, there is a white sheet cover on the inside, just blank, another one, and then we have the owner page. I adore giraffes. They're my favourite animal actually, which gives me another reason to love this journal. So I did a giraffe on my front title page. This is just the belongs to page, and there's just one line there for your name. I've decorated it, and there are no other marked pages. There's no index, there's no key page, there's no page numbers, and there's no pen test page. So completely unmarked. Now, the dots are a pale grey. I'll go into the measure in a minute in my pen test, but they're a pale grey and they go right to the edges. So on average, journals have about 27 by 39 dots across and up. This one has 30 by 41, so lots of extra rows of dots, and how they've achieved that is that they've gone right to the edge of the pages. And there's actually pages where the dots are so close to the edge and the page hasn't been cut the same way as the dots were printed, so we can see a few dots at the bottom here and then it fades away to nothing. I would say lengthwise the dots are usable, so that's 41 dots, and keep in mind that you normally have 39, so that's pretty good. They never run off the page, but I think to be fair we should really discount one row on the outside and possibly even sometimes on the inside. So if we take 2 rows off, that's still 28 across, which is still more than the average journal. So hey, you're doing well for dots. The alignment is very good. They're never out of line by more than a millimetre. I would say the dot alignment is pretty well on perfect, so that's always good. But the journal has 160 pages. It has a similar weight and thickness to other journals like the Archer and Olive, so it's pretty standard in that respect. I've been going on about this a little bit lately. Some journals, on the pages that the little booklets join against the spine, will be slightly raised there so it doesn't really sit flat, or when you try to make it sit flat they tear. This one, you can see the sewing joins between the pages, but look, I would rather a journal that sits flat and doesn't tear and doesn't looks alright, then I'm not worried about being able to see the gaps in the stitching in the spine. The spine is quite sturdy and doesn't crease, so when you lie it flat it just sits like that. Your page will sit up a bit, but it sits flat on the desk. Whereas some other journals with the similar covers, you'll see, oh, the ribbons are in the way, you'll see how the spine is creasing there on my Vivid Scribbles. That is quite common, I think. Yep. Oh, Archer and Olive, what happened was that the spine popped out, so you can see that it's popped out there. It could have, oh no, it could have gone in between as well. So Mindful Giraffe have, just by virtue of having a heavier spine, it doesn't pop out or fold in, it just sits flat. So that actually may help the spine last a bit longer. The paper is 170 GSM, so this is the main point of difference to most other journals on the dot grid journals on the market. Most of them are 160. I have found a 180, which was Marie on Rose. It's an Australian journal. This one is a 170, and I think there is a slight added benefit in that extra 10 GSM. I've noticed a slight improvement in terms of tolerance for water and things like that, so I think you do. It's good quality paper too, which helps, but I think you get some payoff for that 170 rather than 160. The paper is very white, it's acid free, it's sourced from sustainable forestry. I bang on about that a lot, the FSC rating. I think it's very important that it comes from sustainable forests, and it does, and it's also chlorine free. My usual pen test. This journal was excellent for bleeding and ghosting. There was no bleeding or ghosting. I will show you, you'll see that more in the close-up, but there's absolutely no show through, including for the watercolour, heavy inks. I tested a ultra fine Sharpie. This is the really fine one. I like to test it, not because I would use alcohol-based pens in my journals, but because it's a good indicator of how good the paper is, and it barely goes through, so that's quite impressive. I do a smudge test, and this journal was interesting. It was a funny sort of result. So it didn't matter, I tested up to 12 seconds, and it didn't matter whether it was 12 seconds or 2 seconds, it still got a light smudge. Keeping in mind that I am pressing hard, it was a very light smudge on all those, even 2 seconds. So I think if you accidentally just brush the page, it probably wouldn't mark. I was literally setting my finger on that ink and wiping it off. So you're going to get a smudge. I think this is actually a really good result because even at 2 seconds, you're really not getting much of a mark. So I think if you just accidentally smudge it, it's not going to be a problem. It didn't do that well for highlighting after your pen stroke. I use a micron pen, the Pigma micron pens. You did get smudging. It was slightly worse smudging than other paper. It's potentially just got slightly more coating on it than some other papers. It was smooth to write on with a fountain pen, but there is still a minor degree of feathering, very minor, so it's quite pleasant to write on with a fountain pen. The dot darkness, as I mentioned earlier, the dot darkness, it is lighter. It's not your average darkness. It's slightly lighter. It's a pale grey, but I still needed my medium pen to cover the dots, so it's still got an average of 3, but it could have almost got a 2. The dots are on the lighter side. Erasing left a very faint shadow. A lot of the journals do, a very faint shadow after rubbing out a 2B pencil. Smooth paper. The watercolour, very good results, very happy. I've tested a few lately that have done quite well on this. I didn't get any pilling, I got good blending, the water was easy to move around. I used a lot of water, and I will go to my other watercolour here. I used a lot of water. There is a slight page crinkle because of how much water I used. I reckon if you were just doing normal watercolour that we would do in these journals, which is kind of just colouring in and putting a little bit of water around, it would be okay. It would be fine, and you wouldn't get this crinkle. I literally put buckets of water on this, and it's really good. There's no bleed or anything, so very happy with that. And yeah, good results, like good blending. You can keep going back, and like I've put maybe 5 layers of colour on the tree there, and it still didn't peel, still didn't bleed through. So if you love your watercolour, I recommend this journal. That did really well. Obviously the best result's always going to be on watercolour paper, but really not bad on this. I will note here too, while we're back at the beginning, talking about bleed and ghost. So on my title page I used Tombow markers, and because I was doing kind of an arty style, I went over them a bit and used dark colours deliberately to see how the page coped, because sometimes with Tombow markers you do get bleed through. Look, the dark brown and dark grey I used around the top of the nose on the giraffe are the only things that have a slight shadow on the back. Otherwise, not bad. And I was using a serious amount of marker, so if lighter use, and like these flowers where I did use a dark marker but didn't go over it quite as much, haven't shown through at all. So very good results for that. Environmentally, they use FSC paper. They also are reducing their carbon impact by creating the product in the UK, so it's less shipping. It's on the pricier side. It costs at the moment £22.50, and the personalisation is another £1.50. £22.50 when you convert it ends up being on the pricier side, more than your average Archer and Olive journal. However, in the UK they have free shipping. They ship worldwide, so it's not a cheap journal, but it's very good quality, and you can get 10% off your first purchase. So I think it's worth the money. I think it's a good quality journal. I love this journal. I have decided that this is going to be my next bullet journal, so you will soon see some pages coming out on my Instagram and on my website from this journal, and that's going to start in December because I didn't quite squeeze through to next year, which is really annoying because I really wanted to start a journal on the 1st of January, but once again, I'm starting a journal at the end of the year. I'm using too many pages during COVID and writing all sorts of things, so there you go. I love this journal, totally recommend it, and I think you should get in touch with Mindful Giraffe and get your own. Good luck. Thanks. Bye.